Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm really happy to have my next speaker finish off day one of the summit. She's amazing. She's the fabulous Barbara Shooten, and we're going to be chatting about discovering your soul's purpose and mission to unlock a lifetime of potential. Before I get Barbara up on the screen, I just want to give her a little shout out of her bio so you know how amazing she is and who she is. So she is a transformation coach, speaker, and author. She's written so many books on HSPs. And just to remind you all, do check the links below the talks and the speakers. They'll have all their links. You definitely need to follow these people and you definitely need to learn from them. They're amazing. So Barbara specializes in helping HSPs to unlock their inner power, discover a clear vision of the life they want, ignite their passion and purpose to live a full life on their own terms. She has written 4 books on the topic of HSP. She's got 3 online programs and she regularly writes blogs on LinkedIn that have helped, and I love this phrase, even more people to come out of the closet. I thought that was really clever and it really made me think when I read that. So if you feel like you're coming out of the closet today, let us know below in the chat. Barbara also has her own TV show over on YouTube called HSP TV, so do check that out. And she loves talking about everything HSP, energy, and entrepreneurship. So I'm really excited because I love speaking about HSP, energy, and entrepreneurship. So welcome, Barbara. My first question for you is, how, obviously you're super passionate about the topic of HSPs, you are an expert, but how did you find out that you were one yourself? Like what age were you? And yeah, just I'd love to know about your journey into it all.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. It's my pleasure and my honor to be here today. And hi, everybody. So that is a very, very good question. I called it coming out of the closet because for a lot of people, there's a lot of shame on admitting that they are sensitive. And I have a lot of men that come to me, and I see this shame a lot with men. Being a sensitive man is in general not very accepted. It's getting better now in our society, but especially in the old age, you needed to be the macho man, the alpha man. And yeah, so a lot of men have told me when I finally came out of the closet as an HSP, and I thought, oh my God, yes, it can definitely feel that way. So that's why I call it that. And for me, it wasn't so much coming out of the closet as more coming home to myself. I was 32 and I discovered it by accident. I was working in IT for 17 years already. I was the project manager of a very important project for my company at that moment. It was really a do or die type of project. So there was a lot riding on it. And among that was on half of the company jobs of everyone, so no pressure, right? And we had a very difficult customer, and the person that was representing the customer in our business loved to push your buttons to see how long it would take for you to explode. Well, then, being a highly sensitive person, I have this really big responsibility for everyone. But I didn't know I was an HSP. So I wanted my team to have everything that they needed to succeed. I wanted the customer to be happy and get what they wanted. I wanted my boss to be happy with a new client and potentially a lot more work. And I wanted my coworkers to be happy that they were keeping their job. So I wanted everything to be as harmonious as possible. Also, one of the traits of being a highly sensitive, I found out much later. And I wanted to do everything perfectly, at least to the utmost best of my ability. And that is another thing that HSPs tend to have as a pitfall, is raising the bar really high, especially for yourself. So I was raising the bar really high for myself. There was a lot of pressure. And at the same time, I had absolutely nothing to say because my boss, the director of the company, was micromanaging me. And in my role as a project manager and a scrum master, I was supposed to facilitate my team, but I was not allowed to do anything without approval of my boss. So it's being stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then whenever something went wrong, my boss threw me under the bus.
Oh,
It was
nice.
always my fault. It was always something I had forgotten or not done or something. And I was working my ass off. I was working way more than they were paying me for because of this sense of responsibility and this longing for harmony. And we also have a big sense of injustice, and my boss throwing me under the bus every time someone else did something wrong, because the problem was usually the client. The client refused to cooperate, you canceling meetings last time. I can go on, you get it. So there was so much stress there, and I tried to keep up all the balls in the air and do the best that I was able to. And I remember the day that it all came crashing down very clearly. It's also the day I found out I was an HSP. I had scheduled another meeting to talk with the representative of the client to see if we can get the problem solved. And 10 minutes before the meeting, she canceled again, last minute. And it was just the proverbial final drop in the bucket, right? And I told her exactly what I thought about her, the client, and about the project. Not my finest moment. She hung up crying. I
Wow.
also hung up crying. And I went to my manager. And the sad thing is, I had been to my manager at least 4 times telling him it was not going okay. There was too much stress. I was barely coping. And he kept saying, oh, that's not good. We need to do something about it. But nothing happened.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I should have called in sick. But I've been raised to believe that you only call in sick when you cannot walk anymore, you cannot talk anymore, or when you cannot get out of bed anymore. And as long as that was still possible, I felt this obligation, this sense of duty, this sense of responsibility towards everybody. I felt I couldn't fail them. And when I ended up in the burnout and spoke in that way, I was not being mean. I was just being truthful. But yeah, truthful for a highly sensitive person can be very honest, especially a Dutch one, because in our culture, it's already very normal to be very direct. And a lot of people think we are rude, but we are not rude. We're just direct and honest, and that's difficult for many people to handle on a good day, and being highly sensitive on top of that, and then one that's operating from a most authentic place. When the band snaps, there's no more control. So where normally I could rein it in and tone it down or translate it into what the outside world needed to hear, when I ended up in my burnout, I couldn't. So I blew up. And then I felt like I had failed everybody. I had failed myself, I had failed the client, I had failed my coworkers, and I was very, very harsh towards myself, very unloving, very unforgiving. And at one point, I was talking to the director of our business, and he said, well, but yeah, you're an HSP because my wife is an HSP and you're exactly the same. So you must be one too. And I remember thinking, are you calling me a name? Should I be offended? I didn't know what it meant. If he had said highly sensitive person, then at least I could have done something with the individual words, right? But he said, you're an HSP. And I was like, so it stuck with me because I didn't know what to do with it. So when I got back to my workstation, I Googled it
Yeah.
and then found out it stood for a highly sensitive person. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Well, what is a highly sensitive person? So I started Googling that. And the more I read, the more I felt like, oh my God, I'm not weird. I'm not strange. I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm just different from 80% of the rest of the world. And when you don't know what you are, who you are, and everything that that means for yourself,
Yeah.
which is a big part of what I do with the people that come to me, then you think that you're the problem because everybody else doesn't seem to have a problem, doesn't seem to think like you think, do like you do. So most of us, we create this belief that we are the problem and that we need to change. And then we start trying our best to change into the person we think other people want us to be or need us to be, or what we think we need to be in order to get that job or to have that boyfriend, girlfriend, partner, friend group, whatever. And then we start wearing masks. I clearly remember I had a version of Barbara for my parents. I had a version of Barbara for my friends. I had a version of Barbara for my boyfriends. And I had a version of Barbara for my animals. And there were, and probably a couple more, but you get my drift. And they were very different. But who's the real Barbara? And I lost sight of that. And when my boyfriend of 7 years then unexpectedly ended our relationship one night, completely out of the blue, that was just in combination with the phone call. There was the day after that evening. It was just, it's the combination of both private and business and everything colliding. And yeah, definitely deep low.
Yeah, wow, you had quite a week there. And I love what you said. I could totally resonate with it. I definitely burnt out in corporate. I had a micromanager boss. I was probably surrounded by zero HSPs in the actual company I was in. And I did feel like I was a bit odd. I was, I was definitely masking, definitely living a different version of me to suit my colleagues, my parents. I had everybody telling me, "Oh, it's such a great job. You never leave there." And I never really, it never felt like it was my purpose or anything. But I was kind of listening to other voices telling me what success was, and always having that inner battle, thinking, "Well, deep down, I don't really love this job, but I stay for the bonus." But and then it got to a stage where, for me, like I totally burnt out. So it wasn't a variable situation, but it was literally my back went, I think, just from that masking for so long and
Mhm.
listening to non-sensitives and the way they kind of treated me. And like you said, that sense of injustice and being the advocate as well. I remember even seeing people in my workplace bully each other and then telling my boss about it. And it was just brushed under the carpet. And I was like, what? How can you people not be sensitive to the way you're talking to each other? But I was just in the wrong environment. So like I could totally relate to everything that you said. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny how we discovered the term. I know when somebody first said it to me, it was only a few years ago, like instantly my curiosity was piqued, like high sensitive, what does that mean? I think once we hear it, we kind of know deep down it's something to do with us, and then when we learn about it, it's like, oh wow, this is like life changing. It just made me reflect back on my whole career to date. So I'm curious, so this all happened to you around 32. Like, did you like quit that job? Is that when you kind of went on your journey of being a coach? Or how much longer until you kind of emerged as the HSP butterfly that you are today? That's like writing books, has your TV channel, has your podcast. Like, how much longer after that? Because I know when my back went, that was my final straw. I had
Mhm.
time to, lie on my back literally in pink and kind of go, do you know what? These people aren't my people. This isn't my job. I didn't have a plan, very accidental. All I knew was I'm quitting. So I just love to know, like, how did you get from there to where you are today?
That's also a very good question. I already had like an epiphany moment about a year, 1.5 years before, where I kept having repeating patterns in my job where I kept losing my job without it being my fault. Usually 1.5 years, and then it happened again. So that was already very discouraging. And the time before this job that happened, I thought, I'm so done with this. So then I started thinking about, well, what then, right? What if not this, then what then? And that's where I decided that I wanted to be an acupuncturist. And I had already done my first year of acupuncture school by the time I ended up in my burnout. And that was also something that played a part in it, because this is not a school with semesters or something. It's you either do the entire year or you don't do the entire year. So if I was admitting that I couldn't cope anymore and I was in a burnout, that also meant that I couldn't continue with my studies and that I had to postpone my dream for another year. And that was definitely not something I was willing to do. So there was this huge internal battle happening around that time in the burnout. These were things that were playing a part in it, most definitely. And I see that with a lot of people, they're still fighting
Yeah.
in that burnout and fighting against the burnout and not wanting to admit to it or that it's there, acknowledge it. So in that quest, I first was mandatory off for 6 months. We have a company doctor here, and he literally asked me, "Are you crazy? You are not going back to work. You are going to take some time off." So he forced me to do nothing for 6 months, and then I had to sort of slowly move back into working again. And because I didn't want to disappoint my boss and my director, I went along with their plan, even though it was too much for me.
Yeah.
It was too much, too fast, too quick. But I didn't want to be a spoil sport, and I wanted to show that I was committed to the company and to my recovery. And I wasn't as smart as I am right now, or I would never have done it. And so I went along with their plan, and as soon as I was better, they fired me.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow. I can relate to everything you're saying about the sense of duty as well, because like deeply felt that duty when I was off on my back. Oh, the company needs me, the team needs me, I can't let them down. But at the end of the day, I was just a number. And I remember going back after sick leave. I had 6 months as well, funnily enough. And when I went back, they had a temp in and they were really happy with the temp. It was kind of like, oh, wow, I've worked for you for 11 years. I've literally broke my back. And then it was kind of like, oh, well, you're replaceable. So I think it was a good learning lesson for me. It wasn't nice at the time, but yeah, you're obviously not with the right people. Wow.
No.
Yeah.
And because I was already moving towards my dream, when I got fired, you then here come into unemployment, but they force you to apply for other jobs. And I then took a different type of job. But it was the good parts about my previous job that I really liked. And I thought this is just like a gap job, right? Something I need to do until I'm done with my studies and I can start my own business. That was my thinking. So I found that you can suffer through something when you are motivated by something else. And the one day a week that I went to school and that I started studying acupuncture and really tapping into how awesome I think it is, and how much I loved everything I learned, that really helped me move on. But after 6 months in that job, I got fired again because there was a director change, and the new director only wanted people with a certain level of experience that I didn't have. And the old director wanted fresh young blood that could be molded into where the other, because they were graying out. I think the youngest person in that company was 56. So they needed young blood. And then, I was jobless again, back into unemployment. And I thought, I cannot motivate myself again to go for a job I don't want
Yeah.
while I'm working on something that I do want. And then I looked at what I was doing closely, and then I thought, well, but you can already start your business. You might not have your acupuncture diploma, but I had my acupressure diploma. I was a licensed massage therapist in my off time. I had already done my coaching education. I did my Reiki initiations, all of them, some couple of other energy healing modalities. And I thought, you can already start a business. And so part of what we have is perfectionism. And that doesn't mean that my house looks perfect. God knows it doesn't. But it's in these types of things, right? I've like you all have to have all of your ducks in a row before you can actually start. And my final duck in my mind was my acupuncture studies. But I just named all the other things that I already have, and that was more than enough. Only one of those things could have already had me starting a business. So that's when I decided to just start my business, to no longer postpone it and to start it. And the burnout was just the start of my journey of self-discovery and having your own business. I think there's nothing in the world that teaches you as much about yourself and who you are than starting your own business, because you will get to know yourself on a very intimate, deep level if you want to be successful, because you will run into your limiting beliefs, your faulty autopilot programs, your fears, your patterns, everything.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely. I totally agree. Entrepreneurship is a wild ride. And I always think of it as like going to university on steroids. It's like
Yes.
you learn so much. Like, my God, like I've learned so like much in the last 6.5 years. It's way more than I did in my degree years ago. It's just takes it to a new level. And it's not just about the application of what you're doing in your business. Like you say, there's so much to do with mindset, and energy. Like energy is a big thing, I think, for HSPs, because
Yes.
you need to have the energy to execute on the mindset to get, so it's all connected. And I know I've done like so much personal development as well since I started
Mhm.
being a business owner. And I love what you said about the perfectionism. I would like to think of myself as a recovering perfectionist,
Yes,
because
me too.
and a recovering people pleaser. I think as well, if you're
Mhm.
someone who likes to naturally help people, maybe you struggle a bit with boundaries and then that leads to the burnout. It's like, it's a
I'm also a recovering work harder.
yeah, it's a constant thing. And I wonder, is it because we felt like we had that mask on and we didn't want to be found out, so we like work extra hard so that we feel accepted, and I think
It's
that's
a
a
form
struggle.
of people pleasing.
Yeah, and it's a struggle, I think, when you're a business owner as well. Even if you love what you do, it's something I constantly have to be aware of, because I know I can over deliver because it's in me.
But that's how I sabotaged myself, right? I took under promise, over deliver too seriously. And I over delivered so massively that they got everything they needed for free. Didn't need to pay me for my services. Is one
Yeah.
of the things I discovered in my journey. And that's why I think it's so important to really I call it getting to know your own user manual, really discovering all the ins and outs about yourself, what makes you you and what makes you unique, and what are your strengths, but also what are your weaknesses, what are your pitfalls, and what are your natural gifts. And you need all of that as a strong foundation to then build both your life and your business on top of. And a lot of HSPs, empaths, introverts, but I'm an extroverted introvert, think that being a business owner is not for them because they cannot even or barely survive the corporate world, right? And from their way of thinking, that makes perfect sense, because that was one of the thoughts I had as well. And most people probably recognize themselves in that. But when you do something that taps into your soul, into your heart, into your core, into who you really are, then that's so awesome. And yes, it's a shit ton of work. And yes, there are so many lessons. And it's probably like this type of, it's definitely not this type of experience. But if you can learn to see the fun in that, if you can learn to move with life, and that I think might have been my biggest lesson, learning to be more trusting. And with my upbringing and everything that happened as a child, the abuse and the traumas and the stuff, it's no wonder that trust was not something that came natural to me anymore. I think as a child, yes, as a child, especially as HSPs, I was way too trusting. As a child, I thought that everybody was more or less the same. And if I was really nice to you, then you would be really nice to me. And it was not even as a reciprocal thing, but just I was just very nice to everybody, and I automatically assumed that everybody would be nice to me. And when that doesn't happen, then I remember I got hurt
Yeah.
on a very deep level, and I was so cut often, difficulty with trust, difficulty with allowing people in my life, where before I let everybody in and I was more like sort of welcome in doormat. And when people then just throw you away like yesterday's trash, right? That just really hurts. And I didn't see that it was because I gave everything so freely that people didn't see that it had so much value.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. I was going to say to you, so how did you like, obviously it's been a bit of an accidental journey, and I can totally relate because finding my purpose has been a complete accident as well. It literally only happened after my back went. So how did you like, obviously you're obviously interested in energy because everything you've mentioned, acupuncture, reiki, all of that is energy, and you, like self-care basically. How did that kind of take you to where you are? Like how did you realize that that was your purpose? Because I think the job you were in before, like, you know, IT is all about productivity and output, and I was in like corporate financial output. How did you like kind of think, well, that's not my purpose, and doing this, you know, being a coach, being a transformational coach for HSPs? How
Hmm.
did you like, how did you realize, or like, yeah, how did you figure out that that was your purpose? Or do you still feel like you're on a journey and this is your purpose for now and it's going to change? Or
That's a very good question, because I feel like my purpose is constantly changing. And it wasn't until I discovered human design and the gene keys that I finally started understanding this part of myself.
yeah,
Because for those who understand, I am a 6-3 manifesting generator. For those who do not immediately understand, I will explain a little bit. So the 6-3, the 6 goes through life also as a 3 for the first 50 years of their life, and then it starts becoming a 6. So the 6 is the teacher line, but the 3 is the trial and error line. So the 3 has a very challenging life with lots and ups and lots and downs, and a lots of trial, lots of error, lots of lessons that needed to be learned. And I always compared my life to a roller coaster ride, and sometimes it goes really fast, and sometimes it has endless loops, and then it's on a quite what slower track, but it can speed up or change direction at any moment, and that used to make me feel very unsafe. Now I see that as a 6, as a teacher, I have to go through all the 6 lines. So I needed to go through the first line, and then the second, the third, the fourth, to come at the 6. And then being a 6 compared with the 3 means that even as a 6, I'm still learning lots of lessons and still having lots and ups and downs. And that is what is feeding me to create awesomeness. It's what is feeding me to create these books, these online programs, and to truly be able to help people. Because as a manifesting generator, I am a multi-potentialite.
yeah,
That means that I have many different interests. I love many different things, and I'm quite good at
yeah,
almost all of those things. And I say almost because I'm trying to be modest, but honestly, I haven't tried anything that I didn't turn out to be good at yet. So that was also part of my paradigm, that I couldn't say this without people judging me for it, or being too self-absorbed or too full of yourself or those things. But it's not from that place. It's just a fact. And at school, we try to mold children to choose one thing, to become one thing, to do one thing. And even within businesses, I was always told, no, you need to have one target audience and one thing you solve, and one social media or one sales funnel, or, the one thinking. But that's not what belongs to being a manifesting generator. A manifesting generator is like a butterfly that needs to transform, but also one that takes a little bit of information here until she has everything she needs. And then I fly there and then take information there until I have everything I need. And I keep on doing that. And that's also why it's okay to not finish everything, because that's another thing, and a lot of people struggle with. Yeah, I start a lot of things, but I don't finish them. That's because we've then have everything that we need from it. So finishing it would be a waste of your time and effort, because you already have everything that you need from it. And my gift, my truly superpower, is that I can take from everything little bits and then create something new of it that is really valuable to people, and that's really transforming their life in a fairly short period of time. And I love it. And when I started out after my burnout, I started out as an HSP coach that coached highly sensitive people with a burnout. I thought that that was my passion, my purpose. And for a while it was. And that was because of my experiences being an HSP, finding out that the normal burnout path doesn't work for HSPs. So the way into a burnout is completely different. The way out of a burnout is completely different. And there was nobody doing anything for HSPs with a burnout. So I felt called to do that. But then after a couple of years, I was doing courses on marketing and sales, and I discovered that everybody in my VIP group was an HSP or an empath, and they were struggling with everything I was already doing for highly sensitive employees. So then I thought, oh, this is very interesting. Is there someone that coaches specifically for highly sensitive entrepreneurs? And the answer was no. So then I started coaching highly sensitive entrepreneurs with energy management, and discovering your true passions and your gifts, and knowing what you're good at also means that you know the things that you can keep doing yourself or where you need to hire other people for. So it was really valuable, and I loved doing that for a while. And then I think it's depending on your own growth. And the more I grew, the more my business grew. And then my focus or my purpose shifted into a higher gear. And I feel I'm still not completely there, but I think I'm now in fifth gear, about to shift into sixth gear. That's where I feel I am. And so from coaching highly sensitive entrepreneurs, it's now become much broader, because I realized that what both have in common is that you need to know yourself really well and have this really solid foundation for yourself, where you can trust on, where you know how to handle your energy, where you have a clear overview of who you really are, where you don't have to wear your masks, where you know what to watch out for, what your triggers are, what your signs are, what your pitfalls are, and what lights you up, and what should be your focus within your business. Because also based on human design and the gene keys, I discovered I was running a business that did not fit with who I actually am. And I'm shifting more and more into speaking and into teaching, and that's also more in line with my sixth line, the line of the teacher. I have a much broader thing to do here than only coaching, which will always be a part of what I do, but it's much more. So to answer your question, that's the whole journey into where I am now. And for me, yeah, my purpose kept shifting throughout that
Yeah,
journey.
I think that's such a good message, because I think a lot of people think they have to just have one purpose, or just like you said, just one thing. But the fact that you're passionate about many things, and the fact that you're evolving, I can totally relate to that, because my purpose and potential is always changing, as I like we're all works in progress. And I think once we get to the next stage, different things unfold, or we think of different things. And so I love that. And I love human design as well, so I'm big on the energy, and I've got a 3, so I could relate to because I used to always feel bad about, why do I always have to go around the houses and test everything out? And I always think of myself as a goat, like flying around everywhere. And it's like, why do I have to do it? Why can't I fast track? But like you said, it's just part of who we are, you know. And I've always been slightly envious of manifesting generators, because I'm a generator. So I love the fact that you are like multi-passionate and that you can take what you need to move on. I've always like, you're very good at that kind of initiation and like fast tracking, whereas I am, let me do all the things. So yeah, I love that you, and you can see that obviously you know, you've written so many books, you've got so many programs, you've got your YouTube, you've got your podcast. And I think it's great. It's a great message that you don't just have to be one thing, that we're all different. And it's important to figure out like who we are, because I think we've probably all, you know, learned from coaches and consultants, you know, and trainers who've had a different human design and makeup to us. And it's felt like totally out of alignment or whack. And it's like, why can't I get it? What's wrong with me? And then I think when you learn more about yourself as a HSP business owner, then you kind of connect the dots. And then I think it's that freedom of, I can do it my way. I don't have to do it this way,
Exactly.
you know. And I think when you start to lean into that, then it becomes a joyful business. Whereas when you're trying to put yourself into someone else's model, it's a bit like corporate life. You're like, you're just not quite fitting in. It doesn't
You're
feel,
trying to put your square self into a
yeah,
round hole. That's just,
exactly, exactly. And I think if anyone's listening today and they are a business owner or they're thinking about becoming a business owner, like we've both said, we're both accidental. And I like, if you told me now, like I was going to be a business owner like 7 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. I totally fell into it and I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I think I would have been terrified about it. But I think when you lean into who you are, it does become that purpose. And then it's so different to being an employee. It
for
is so
me,
different. It's true.
exactly. Yeah, and then you're absolutely right. And for me, it was not so much accidental. I wanted to be a business owner for quite some time. I just didn't know how. I
I
didn't
know.
know what to be or how to do it because nobody in my family was an entrepreneur. And I was raised with, well, get a good job, right?
Yeah.
Good education, good job, and then good husband, two children,
Yeah.
and the whole shebang, right? And that also never really happened for me. And that was also one of the things about myself that I needed to come to terms with, that I am a very unique unicorn, but I'm also a badass bitch, and I am a black sheep, and I am a rebel, and I am a trailblazer, and that's okay. I am all of these things, and sometimes I'm also depressed, and sometimes I'm also sad, and sometimes I'm also needing a hug, and all of these things can be there, and it doesn't mean that you're blocking your abundance, that you're blocking your attraction, or that you are not being yourself. I think it's about really getting to know every aspect of yourself and loving every aspect of yourself and giving every aspect of yourself room to be, because we were talking about this before we actually started recording, that when you move to the next level, especially as a six, it comes with growing pains, and growing pains are periods in your life where you are very sad and where a lot of shitty things happen and where you want to cry a lot and where you might even want to harm yourself. You probably won't do it, but you're definitely thinking about it. And all of those things are normal, and I never knew that they were normal for a six line. And so that's why for me, the on top of all the other things that I'm doing, discovering these aspects of myself and what they mean for me, everything is like a piece of the puzzle. Discovering HSP was already a wonderful discovery. Empathy was a wonderful discovery. Extroverted, introvert, because 70% of the HSPs are introverted, but I'm much more extroverted, but not always. There are moments where I need to be by myself. I call those days I cannot people today. Right? And it's all of these things are puzzle pieces that make up Barbara, and my human design profile is a puzzle piece. My gene keys are a puzzle pieces of that. And the more I learn, the more I discover, the more I grow. But it still comes with growing pains, and it still comes with utterly shitty days. It's just that you start realizing, oh, it's utterly shitty again. I must be in growing pains, but that means we're going to the next level. Yay, right? And we talked about it. It sometimes feels like you're two people, or at least I feel like I'm two people. I am the person that's going through all of these growing pains, that has the hurts and the stress and the shitty things and the challenges and the what you name it. And then there's this old me, and then there's new me, enlightened me, growth me, source me, that sees old me and sees that old me hasn't completely died yet, and is still sort of affected by some of these things. And it's a very interesting sensation to feel both of these energies within yourself, and think like, well, I would have responded like this to that, but now I look at it like this. Or to realize, oh, I did respond a little bit like old me here, but I got it very quickly, and now I understand the pattern. And then you are able to do some healing techniques or break release techniques or whatever on it, whatever it needs, and then let it go. And knowing that that means that you're one step closer to your true purpose.
Amazing, amazing. I could talk to you all day. Like, I think you've got so much words of wisdom, and I love all your stories and your journey. I can totally relate to that inner conflict. It's like angel and devil in your head, like kind of, and that kind of being able to look and analyze yourself as well. Like, totally, it's like two different people, like you say. So I can
Right.
totally get that. And yeah, you've made me really curious to even check out Gene Keys, because I love to just learn about any of this kind of thing. So I'm going to definitely delve into that after seeing some of your recent LinkedIn posts on it as well. I was going to say too, so obviously you're on lots of different places, and I did
Mm.
notice, actually, it's funny because of all the speakers, I think most of the speakers on this summit hang out mainly on the website or maybe one channel, but I did notice, and it makes sense, you're on a lot.
Yeah,
So
I'm
what
everywhere.
yeah, it's kind of like, what's your favorite place for people to reach out if they were to connect with you? Is it like email, website, a favorite platform? So where do you like people to get in touch?
That's a very good question. So it kind of also depends on where they are. If they want to get to know me and what I talk about better, then I would say go to my YouTube channel. Everything is under HSP Coach Barbara, and then Barbara with an E, like you can also see in the below me.
Yeah.
And then you can check out what I talk about, and more talks like this, and you will get a pretty good picture of who I am, because I don't hold back. This, what you see is also what you're getting. This is just really me. So that would be a good place. But it's also hspcoachbarbara.com for my website. You can email me. You can find me on all other social platforms, also under HSP Coach Barbara. So for me, it doesn't really matter how you reach out. I would love that you would reach out if you feel resonating, or if you just want to talk and explore, or just want to be a guest on my show, whatever. I love meeting new people. I love connecting with people, and I also love connecting other people to each other. So yeah, find me.
So yeah, everybody listen, like listening, please check out the links below this talk, or Barbara's speaker information. Like, she's in loads of different places, and definitely do reach out and connect with her. She's amazing, as you can see, and I love Dutch honesty. It's funny because we started today with a Dutch speaker, Esther, and we're finishing on a Dutch. I love the honesty. I think Irish people are brutally honest, so I'm kind of in the same viewpoint as you. I just think life's too short. Like, I love it. I find it like super refreshing. So I
Mhm.
can listen to you all day. I think sometimes it's good to get the hard truths. Just, saves you so much time wasting. And yeah,
Yes,
we're only here for a short time, so why not get to the point straight away? So I
definitely.
just want to thank you so much for coming on. You're amazing, and I think you're a great speaker to end the day with. And I've really loved, yeah, I love the way you go off in tangents and all the different passions, and just the way you're talking about the potential and the purpose changing. Like, you're like walking the walk, talking the talk. Like,
Thank
so I
you.
think it's It's a great message because, like I said, so many people will think, oh, I have to have just one purpose, one way. So you've really like, yeah, I'm sure so many HSPs today will relate to you. So thank you so much. If I was to, if you were to give like one last tip to people listening today, like about finding their purpose or potential, like what would that be?
Well, that is a very good question. Um, I think for me, everything revolves around finding out who you are. Because if you do not know who you are, or if you are not sure about who you are or who you want to be, even because you've put your life in duty in service of other people for so long that you have no clue who you are anymore, then you will never find the thing that really is your passion. So, in whatever form, shape, of way that you need to get to who you really are, do it. And that means exploring things. And there's a quick way in doing it, and that's reaching out and finding a mentor, a guide like me, or like most of the other speakers that you're seeing here today. Or there's also trial and error and just Googling and listening and trying stuff. And in that, I would advise you to always listen to your gut feeling
Yeah.
with everything that you're doing.
Amazing. Brilliant advice. So thank you so much, Barbara. You've been amazing. Thank you, everybody who's been on with us today. I hope you've enjoyed the first day, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. And I hope you've had lots of light bulb moments. I know I have. So yeah, I'm going to be watching back all the replays just to get all the goodness from this talk and others. So thank you so much, Barbara, and thank you, everybody. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.